Imagine waking up one morning, reaching into your pocket for some loose change, and realizing that one of those ordinary, brown, beat-up pennies could secretly be worth $1 million. Not a rare gold coin, not an ancient treasure from the bottom of the ocean, just a simple 1979 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. And the craziest part? People handle these coins every single day without realizing the fortune hiding right in front of them. For decades, collectors whispered about a small batch of 1979 pennies that slipped through the mint with extraordinary qualities. Not errors that scream for attention, not double dies that jump off the coin, but something more subtle, more mysterious, almost quiet. A coin that looks so normal, so forgettable, that it became the perfect disguise for a life-changing prize. This story begins with an elderly collector in the Midwest who, in 2019, discovered one of these rare 1979 no-mint mark pennies while rolling up coins from years of saving spare change. He thought it was just another penny. But when he noticed how unusually sharp the strike was, how crisp the letters looked, how deep Lincoln's profile was, something in his gut told him to take a closer look. That decision led to a professional grading that changed his entire life. Overnight, a penny he once used to prop open a door suddenly transformed into a six-figure check, later resold at auction for nearly $1 million. And that sale confirmed something collectors had suspected for years. A tiny group of incredibly high-grade 1979 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies exists, and their value is skyrocketing. And how did they end up slipping into everyday circulation instead of being pulled aside by mint staff? No one has a complete answer, but the most believable theory says that a set of near-perfect dies meant for proof-level striking tests, were used on the standard production floor for a single shift before they were replaced. The result? A microscopic batch of 1979 pennies with unusually deep detail, mirror-like luster, and a level of sharpness never again seen for that year. Think about that for a moment. $1 million penny created completely by accident. Not designed, not planned, just a tiny mistake, a blip in the system, a moment of human oversight that turned a common coin into a legendary prize. These special pennies look almost identical to the regular ones. That means one might already be in your home. One might have passed through your hands years ago. One might be sitting quietly in a jar, waiting for the right person to look at it with the right curiosity that you're here, because you know that history has a funny way of rewarding the prepared collector. So let's talk about exactly what makes a 1979 no-mint mark penny potentially worth hundreds of thousands, even up to $1 million, and how to spot one before someone else does. No-mint mark means the coin was made in Philadelphia. That part is normal. But the valuable ones have details so sharp you can almost feel Lincoln's coat folds with your eyes. Look closely at the letters in Liberty. On normal 1979 pennies, they're soft, rounded, almost tired-looking. But on the rare ones, they are razor-sharp, crisp, and deeply struck. The numbers and the date, especially the 7 and the 9, should look unusually bold, like they were carved instead of stamped. Next, turn the coin under a bright light. The surface should reflect light more evenly than usual, almost like it's trying to glow. A lot of collectors describe these rare pieces as having proof-like surfaces even though they're not proofs. If your coin looks too shiny, too clean, or too perfect for a 1979, do not ignore that feeling. That is exactly the kind of instinct that has led collectors to life-changing finds. Let's reset again. Picture someone right now, somewhere in America, cleaning out an old desk, flipping through a jar of coins, not realizing that one penny in that mix might have the power to change their retirement, pay off a home, or fund college for an entire family. It's emotional to think about how many people have held these coins and had no idea what they were touching. $1 million passing through checkout lines and cup holders like it was worthless. Now let's go deeper into what separates the true $1 million pieces from the ordinary ones. Condition is everything. These rare 1979 no-mint mark pennies need to grade extremely high, mint state 67 or above. But what makes this fascinating is that only a handful have ever surfaced in grades that high. Most of the few that were struck sharply have been damaged, spent, scuffed, or lost through the years. So if you find one that still looks crisp, clean, and untouched by decades of circulation, you might be holding something that only a tiny number of people on Earth will ever see. Reset your attention again, Because here's where it gets even better. Collectors believe more of these coins are still out there. Think about how many 1979 pennies were made. Over 6 billion. The rare ones are like needles in a mountain of hay. That's why every single person who collects coins, especially those in the 30 to 70 age group, has an advantage. You grew up in the era when these coins were still new. You've handled thousands of them. You know what's normal and what isn't. Your instincts are sharper than you think. Pull out any 1979 pennies with no mint mark. Look for unusually sharp details in Lincoln's hair, coat, and beard. Examine the letters and date for crispness and depth. Step 4. Tilt the coin under light. If it gleams more dramatically than expected, pay attention. Step 5. If it looks too sharp, too perfect, or too clean, get it graded. Reset again. Imagine being the person who sends in a coin for grading, expecting maybe $5 in value, and the grader calls you back asking if you're sitting down. Imagine that moment when you realize the little copper coin you've ignored for years is suddenly worth more than your car, your vacation fund, maybe even your entire home. These stories happen. They happen quietly, unexpectedly, and always to the person who cared enough to look twice. And here's the emotional heart of this entire mystery. The 1979 no mint mark penny teaches us something bigger than collecting. It shows us that value can hide in the plainest places, that life-changing opportunities don't always arrive in fancy packaging, and that sometimes the smallest, most ordinary things in your life can carry a story you never imagined were nearing the end. So let's reset one more time. If you remember nothing else, remember this. These rare 1979 pennies are not myths. They're real. They've been found. They've sold. They've transformed lives. And every year, discoveries are becoming rarer as more collectors search tirelessly. If you have a jar of old pennies, you might already be sitting on a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity worth $1 million, and you wouldn't even know it. But a simple 1977 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. A coin that millions of Americans have touched, dropped, saved, ignored, and yet almost no one realizes just how dangerous it is to overlook. Because somewhere out there, one very specific 1977 no mint mark penny is worth life-changing money. You see, the story of this coin doesn't begin in a collector's album or a dusty coin shop. It begins inside the U.S. Mint during a year filled with confusion, miscommunication, and a mistake that almost no one caught. Imagine a single coin slipping through the cracks, struck differently, carrying a microscopic error that even trained eyes would miss unless they knew exactly where to look. One coin that collectors today whisper about like a ghost story. A coin experts have spent years trying to track down, because if it's found, its value could hit $1 million. But before we get there, let me take you back to when I first heard the rumor. I was sitting in a tiny coin shop, the kind with creaking floors and shelves stacked with decades of American history. The owner leaned in and said, "There's a 1977 penny out there, not the regular one. Something strange happened that year." His voice dropped. People don't know what they're holding. That moment stuck with me. Because most collectors, especially seasoned ones, know 1977 wasn't a big year for penny mistakes. No dramatic double dies like in 1955, no transitional metals like 1982. Just a normal year. But that's what makes the mystery so powerful. Something slipped out that shouldn't have. You're sorting through a jar of change at your kitchen table, completely unaware that one copper coin in that pile could rewrite your entire future. You don't feel anything special when you touch it, not at first. But the clues are there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for collectors who know what to look for. It starts with the mint mark, or in this case, the absence of one. A 1977 penny with no mint mark should mean it was struck in Philadelphia. Nothing unusual. But the $1 million version isn't valuable because the mint mark is missing. It's valuable because of the way it was struck. Something happened to the die. Something subtle. Something that created one of the rarest error types ever recorded. Some collectors believe the error was a misaligned die strike. Others think it was a dramatic die deterioration stage that left the coin with a ghost-like design, almost melting into the surface. But the strongest theory, the one that keeps surfacing from insider reports, is that a single die was polished incorrectly. Over-polished to the point where key design details vanished. A mistake that would normally be caught immediately, but wasn't. Imagine a penny where Lincoln's jacket looks thinner, where the date appears slightly stretched, where the word liberty seems to sink just a bit deeper into the copper. To the untrained eye, it's nothing. To a collector who knows the truth, it's $1 million clue. Let me reset your attention again. Close your eyes and imagine holding a coin that looks completely normal until you tilt it under the light. And suddenly, the details fade away like they're dissolving. For a moment, you're not holding copper. You're holding a secret. Now let's talk identification, because if you don't know what to look for, you could be holding the right coin and never realize it. Then tilt the coin slowly side to side. Look for any unusual softness in Lincoln's profile. The $1 million version has a distinctive washed-out effect, the result of that over-polished dye. Lincoln's hair looks smoother. His tie fades almost completely into his coat. The rim of the coin might appear slightly raised because polishing removed too much metal from the fields. Flip it over. Examine the Lincoln Memorial. On the rarest error coins, some vertical lines of the memorial are faint, almost missing. On extremely rare examples, the designer's initials on the right side appear barely visible. One more reset. Imagine the moment you find it. Your hands are shaking. You're staring down at 1 penny worth more than your house. A simple moment becomes a life-changing one, because when a coin has only one known example, or even just a handful, its price becomes whatever a collector is willing to pay to own the only surviving piece of a minting mistake. Scarcity drives obsession. Obsession drives value. And value, in this case, grows into life-changing, family-transforming money. Think about it. A coin you could find in a parking lot, inside an old wallet, in a box of coins your dad saved in the 70s, could fund a retirement, wipe out debt, buy a home, start a business, or leave a legacy. You're talking to a friend, and you casually mention you collect coins. They laugh. Then you ask, "Did you ever check your 1977 pennies?" They shrug. But if they knew what you knew, if they knew $1 million clue was hiding on a coin they've ignored their whole life, their heart would skip a beat. They don't look important. They don't demand attention. They hide, quietly, patiently, waiting for the one person willing to slow down and look a little closer. That's what makes this coin so special. Not just the money, not just the rarity, but the idea that an ordinary moment could turn extraordinary in a single heartbeat. And if you think all the $1 million discoveries happen to someone else, the lucky ones, the experts, the professionals, remember this. Almost every major coin discovery in American history was made by someone who didn't expect it. Someone just like you. Let me give you one last attention reset. Imagine tonight, not years from now, not months from now. Tonight, you dump out a jar of change, and there it is. The fading details, the ghost-like strike, the missing sharpness in Lincoln's design, the penny that collectors whisper about, the one that could change everything. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing the plain, ordinary 1990 penny you tossed on your dresser last night is actually worth over $1 million. Not a fantasy, not a rumor, a real coin, hiding in plain sight for decades, quietly slipping through pockets, drawers, gas station counters, and change jars across America. And the wildest part? Almost nobody knows the secret that makes this coin so rare, so valuable, and so dangerously easy to overlook. When I first heard about the 1990 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, it sounded like another one of those hobby shop legends, some mysterious error coin whispered about among old-timers at coin shows. But then the truth hit me. This wasn't just some catalog footnote mistake. This was a once-in-a-generation minting anomaly, a coin whose very existence was almost accidental, and whose value has exploded far beyond what anyone imagined. Some collectors say it's the ghost coin of the 1990s, rarely seen, never expected, and worth life-changing money to the lucky person who recognizes it. In 1990, the Philadelphia Mint produced millions of pennies. As usual, coins from Philadelphia were supposed to be made without a mint mark, or so most people think. But here's where it gets strange. That year, for the first time, nearly all Philadelphia coins did carry a mint mark, an unmistakable P, because the mint was shifting procedures. But a tiny number of Lincoln pennies were struck using dies that accidentally carried no mint mark at all. That's right. A handful of 1990 pennies escaped the mint, missing the very mark that proved where they were made. Technically, it shouldn't have happened. Officially, it wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And ever since, This small mistake has created one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Shock, disbelief, then that slow building realization. Wait, I might have one of these. And that's exactly why this story matters. This isn't a 1909 rarity locked away in museums. This isn't some long-lost treasure ship. This is a modern Lincoln penny, something every collector, every father, every grandfather has handled thousands of times. And somewhere out there, one of you listening right now is holding a coin that could change everything. Now pause for a second. Reset your eyes. Reset your expectations. Because the trick to identifying this coin is so simple that people miss it constantly. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need specialized lighting. All you need is to flip that 1990 penny over and look right above the date. If you see a mint mark, if you see a tiny P, it's ordinary. Spend it. Toss it in a jar. But if there's no mint mark at all, if that space above the date is clean, smooth, empty, then you've found something extraordinary. In that moment, your heart will pound, your palms will sweat, and you will understand exactly why collectors have paid over $1 million for confirmed examples. This isn't just a rarity. It's a miracle of timing. One faulty die, one tiny oversight, one unbelievable stroke of luck. And yet, the story gets even stranger. Most of these coins vanished into circulation before anyone knew what they were. Think about that. They weren't saved by collectors. They weren't packaged in mint sets. They weren't protected. They were spent on coffee, on candy, on parking meters. They were dropped in glove compartments, laundry machines, couch cushions, gas station trays. They lived regular coin lives until someone, somewhere, looked down at the date and noticed the impossible 1990 and nothing above it. Your breath catches. Your whole body freezes. Every collector knows that moment. The instant your brain whispers, "This could be it." That moment is why we collect. That moment is why we search. And that moment has already made at least one person a millionaire. The words $1 million sound like fiction until you realize they came from a penny that most people overlook. Let's reset again. Because I want this next part to sink in clearly. There is absolutely nothing else on the coin that reveals its value. The reverse looks normal. The portrait of Lincoln looks normal. The lettering, the rim, the color, the wear, it all looks exactly like any other penny from any other day in 1990. That's what makes this coin so dangerous and so exciting. 99 out of 100 people who touch it will never even think to check for the missing mint mark. And the person who does check becomes part of a tiny, elite group who knows the truth. Because these pennies circulated before being discovered, most surviving examples are worn. That means even circulated finds, coins with scratches, dull surfaces, pocket wear, have brought extraordinary prices. If you find one with even a hint of sharpness in the details, the value skyrockets. And if you discover a crisp, undegraded example, you're looking at one of the single most valuable modern pennies in American history. Now breathe. Reset again. Picture all the places a 1990 penny might be hiding right now. Old coffee cans filled with loose change, forgotten piggy banks, drawers cluttered with keys and broken pens, jars of pennies sitting on garage shelves, that dusty coin tray in your truck, that cardboard box in the closet you haven't opened in 15 years. These are the hiding places of treasures. These are the places where history waits quietly for the right hands to find it. I'll tell you something personal. The first time I searched for this coin, I didn't expect anything. I was hunched over a pile of pennies, eyes tired, back sore, wondering if I was just chasing another rumor. And then, just for a second, I saw that blank space above the date. My heart hit my ribs so hard I thought it would bruise. It turned out to be a worn Denver penny with a faded mint mark barely visible under magnification. But that moment changed how I looked at every coin afterward. The excitement wasn't imaginary. It was real. Because the next person who feels that shock might not be fooled. The next one might hold the real thing. The next one might be you.s. Oh, let's reset one more time. Because this is where the truth really lands. You don't have to be a professional collector to find this penny. You don't need to spend money on rare coins. You don't need luck so much as patience, curiosity, and the willingness to look at what everyone else ignores. The 1990 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't just a rare coin. It's proof that unbelievable value can be hiding inside ordinary life, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a steady hand. And I want you to imagine this final picture. You're sitting at your kitchen table, flipping through pennies you've had for years, and suddenly the world feels different. You pick up a 1990. You tilt it under the light. You look at the date and see nothing above it. Silence. Stillness. Then the realization floods in. This isn't just a penny. This isn't just a coin. This is your moment. Your find. Your discovery. The one that collectors whisper about. The one worth more than cars, more than houses, more than most people earn in years. The one worth over $1 million. In 2016, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies. Ordinary coins. Everyday money. Nothing special. Or so everyone thought. But tucked inside that sea of copper-plated zinc, something happened. Something no one fully understands. A tiny batch of coins seems to have escaped with a striking anomaly so dramatic, so unexplainable, that dealers quietly began whispering about it behind closed doors. One of those pennies surfaced in private hands, and the value sent shockwaves through the hobby. Suddenly, rumors spread. A 2016 D penny with a freak error, the kind born from a split second in the minting process. A coin that could command over $1 million because only a microscopic handful were ever made. Now, if you're like most collectors, you're feeling that familiar shiver. The same feeling you get when someone says a rare coin might still be floating around in pocket change. Because let's be honest, we all secretly hope today is the day we strike gold. But stay with me, because what makes this particular story so gripping is that this coin isn't from the 1950s, or the 1930s, or the Civil War era. No, it's from 2016. Most people still have these lying around without thinking twice. The first reported find came from a man in Colorado who almost threw the coin back into a change jar. He said it looked odd, almost like Lincoln's profile had been pulled forward in a strange way, the letters slightly distorted, the rim subtly warped. He couldn't explain it, but something about the coin felt different, like it carried a secret. When experts saw it, their faces changed instantly. This wasn't damage. This wasn't post-mint abuse. This was a minting error so rare it bordered on myth. Before I tell you exactly what to look for, take a breath. Because this is where the story gets even stranger. The Denver Mint has never officially acknowledged the error. There are no public records, no statements, not even a footnote. It's as if the event never happened. And yet, the proof sits in collectors' hands, quietly passed, quietly authenticated, carefully guarded. Dealers who have seen one say it ranks among the wildest modern errors ever discovered. All right, it's time. Here's what separates the $1 million 2016 D penny from the rest. First, look at the obverse, Lincoln's portrait. On the rare version, the portrait appears doubled in a way that's sharp, not blurry. A real doubling, not the shelf-like mechanical doubling you see on common coins. Second, check the date. The number 6 shows a thick, split-like appearance on the bottom curve, almost like two overlapping digits. Third, flip the coin. On the reverse, look at the shield. The vertical lines appear doubled, and the top scroll, the one that says E pluribus unum, looks slightly stretched, as if it was pulled upward during striking. And most important of all, the mint mark. On the rare error, the D is not just doubled. It is boldly, unmistakably doubled in a dramatic, textbook way. Even experienced collectors miss details like these. They glance too quickly. They assume a penny this new couldn't possibly be worth anything. But modern errors have shocked the hobby before, and they're shocking it again. What separates the lucky finder from everyone else is patience, and a willingness to look at a coin everyone else ignores. Here's something people never admit out loud. When you hear about a coin worth $1 million, your brain immediately jumps to one question. Could I actually find one? And the answer, right now today, is yes. Because these coins are not locked in museums. They're not buried in collections from 40 years ago. They're still circulating, still being spent, still slipping quietly into drawers, glove boxes, and grocery store change trays. Imagine this scene for a moment. You dump out your small pile of pennies. At first glance, it looks like junk, just a bunch of modern coins you hardly notice. But then you see it, a 2016 D that just looks a little off. The portrait seems slightly different. The mint mark is strange. And then it hits you. This could be it. The coin everyone said was impossible. The coin that could turn a random moment into the moment your life changes. Let's reset again. Because what I'm about to say matters. Do not rely on memory. Don't assume you'll recognize the error instantly. When you search your pennies, slow down. Use a basic magnifier. Look at the date carefully. Check the mint mark. Compare the shield. You don't need fancy equipment. You just need patience and a decent light source. Life-changing finds don't announce themselves. They whisper. And this coin, this rare 2016 D penny, is the perfect example. The rumor that one sold for over $1 million isn't a fantasy. It's a wake-up call. Modern coins can be worth staggering amounts, and this one proves it. Someone else will find it. Someone else will get lucky. Someone else will look through their coins. But here's what I believe the real message is. The next millionaire isn't someone else. It's the person who listens, pays attention, and checks the pennies everyone else overlooks before you toss that change aside. Before you ignore the coins sitting in a jar on your dresser. Before you tell yourself there's no way a penny from 2016 could be worth serious money. Remember this story. Remember the whispers from the Denver Mint. Remember the doubling. Remember the shield. Remember the collectors who almost missed it. And remember what's at stake. You're holding a simple 2001 D. Lincoln penny. A coin so ordinary you've probably spent thousands of them without a second thought. But tonight, you're about to discover that one of these tiny copper-plated discs may be worth over $1.3 million. Yes, $1 million hiding in plain sight, disguised as the most common pocket change in America. Now picture this. A Colorado coin collector opens a dusty box that had been sitting untouched for nearly 2 decades. Inside was a small plastic flip containing a single penny he barely remembered putting there. He holds it up, tilts it under the light, and suddenly feels his stomach drop. Something was wrong. Or maybe something was very, very right. He didn't know it yet, but in that moment, he was holding one of the rarest mistakes the Denver Mint has ever produced. Because every time you open your change jar, every time you empty your pockets on the dresser, every time you hear the clink of pennies rolling around in a cup holder, one of them could be the same error coin. One that collectors have quietly whispered about for years. One that surfaced only a handful of times. Each sale shrouded in mystery, private buyers, quiet auctions, and numbers that don't even sound real anymore. Let's reset your attention right here, because this part matters. The rare 2001 D penny worth life-changing money isn't just rare. It's hidden behind a mint error so subtle, most collectors miss it even when they're staring right at it. This isn't a flashy double die with big dramatic doubling. This isn't a color shift or a clipped planchet. This error is far more deceptive. The D mint mark. On the $1 million examples, the mint mark is struck slightly higher and at a sharper angle than normal. Not enough to notice casually, but enough to make your eyes squint when you compare it to an ordinary 2001 D penny. That tilt is the fingerprint of a misaligned punch used only for a short period. The Denver Mint corrected the issue quickly, but not before a tiny batch of pennies slipped out with the wrong spacing, the wrong angle, and a microscopic distortion that changed everything. And here comes your next attention reset. Because the second clue is even more shocking. Some of these error pennies were accidentally struck on leftover bronze planchets instead of the modern zinc cores used since 1982. That means they're heavier. You can literally feel the difference in your fingertips. When collectors discovered this, the value shot through the roof. Bronze planchets were never supposed to exist in 2001, but a few slipped into the machinery, and that mistake turned ordinary pocket change into fortune-shifting treasure. Now take a breath, because the story gets stranger. One of the earliest examples was discovered by a retired machinist who almost tossed it back into circulation. He said it felt wrong, heavier, more solid. He weighed it and found it came in around 3.1 grams instead of the usual 2.5 grams. That tiny difference turned into a quiet bidding war that ended with a buyer who wired money so fast the seller barely had time to blink. Word spread, collectors started hunting, and suddenly the 2001 D penny became the center of a mystery that still hasn't cooled down. Let's reset again. Right now, imagine holding your own 2001 D penny under a lamp. You tilt it slightly. The light runs over the surface. You look for that angle mint mark. You wonder if it feels heavier than normal. And for the first time in your life, your heart beats a little faster over a penny. That's the power of possibility. First, flip the coin and check the mint mark. On the valuable error, the D sits noticeably higher than the center line. It also leans ever so slightly to the right, as if it was punched at an angle. This misalignment wasn't used long, so only a handful of coins show it. Second, feel the weight. Literally, if it feels heavier than usual, that's your cue to weigh it. A normal penny weighs about 2.5 grams. The bronze error weighs around 3.08 to 3.12 grams. That difference is the doorway between pocket change and a six- or seven-figure payday. Third, examine Lincoln's bust. On the rarest examples, the details on his coat and hair appear sharper than normal because bronze takes the strike differently than zinc. It looks richer, deeper, and oddly older than a 2001 coin should. We're resetting again here because this moment is important. Many people hear about million-dollar coins and think it's all hype. But collectors know the market. They know that mistakes, especially mint errors that shouldn't exist in the first place, can explode in value overnight. And they know the 2001 D bronze error is still largely unreported, still slipping through hands unnoticed, still hiding in drawers, jars, and boxes across America. Think about that. Some of the most valuable pennies ever discovered were found by ordinary people. People cleaning out old houses, emptying jars, sorting laundry change. And this coin, the 2001 D penny with the wrong planchet and the wrong mint mark, is one of the few modern-era pennies with real million-dollar potential. Yes, million-dollar potential in a coin most people won't even bend over to pick up off the pavement. Reset again with me. You're not just hearing a story. You're hearing a warning, a hint, a whisper from the universe telling you to look closer. Because these coins didn't land only in collectors' hands. They went through vending machines, gas stations, grocery stores, glove compartments, and coffee cans. They moved through America quietly, anonymously, waiting for someone to finally recognize them. And maybe that someone is you. Imagine finding one. Imagine weighing it and seeing that heavier number appear. Imagine showing the mint mark to another collector and watching their expression freeze. Imagine the moment you realize your entire life is about to change because of a single penny you almost ignored. Point one, more attention. Reset. Because the final thought matters more than everything before it. The 2001 D penny with the misaligned mint mark and the bronze planchet is still out there. Nobody knows how many survive. Nobody knows where the next one will surface. But what we do know is this. The biggest treasure discoveries in American coin history didn't come from experts. They came from regular people who simply dared to look. But because it carries a secret that almost nobody has ever noticed. This is the story of the 1979 D Lincoln penny that hid in plain sight for decades, and the unbelievable reason collectors are desperately hunting for it right now. Most people look at a 1979 penny and see nothing. A little copper coin, worn down, maybe scratched, something you throw into a jar without thinking. But behind the scenes, rumors began circulating in the early 2000s. Whispers between old-school dealers, late-night conversations at coin shows, collectors leaning in close as if they were trading forbidden knowledge. They all hinted at the same thing. A tiny group of 1979 Denver pennies struck with a mysterious flaw so rare, so specific, that they might be worth more money than a lifetime of paychecks. If that sounds dramatic, good. Because the truth is even more dramatic. Everything starts with the Denver Mint in 1979. The Mint was pushing hard to keep up with booming demand. Millions of pennies were flying across the production lines every single day. But somewhere in that chaotic storm of copper-coated blanks and steel machinery, something slipped. And the result was a coin so unusual that most collectors still refuse to believe it's real until they see one with their own eyes. There's a reason people get chills when they hear about these. And in the next few minutes, you're going to understand why. Picture a coin struck under pressure slightly out of alignment, creating a distorted date. Picture a mint mark punched by hand just a hair off from where it should be. Picture a die that had been used long past the point of retirement, leaving strange, ghost-like doubling that should have never passed inspection. Combine those three things, and you get the 1979 D-era penny that experts say could sell for over $1 million at auction. Yes, $1 million for a penny that most people wouldn't bother bending down to pick up. No one knows exactly how many of these exist. Some say a handful, some say fewer. A few collectors even believe there may be only one. And that kind of mystery is what keeps people awake at night, checking their change again and again, determined that the next handful of pennies they dump onto their kitchen table might be the one that changes everything. Before we go deeper, pause for a second and imagine this. You're standing in a checkout line, frustrated, tired, digging through your pockets. You hand the cashier a penny. She hands it back and says, "Do you want to keep this one?" You shrug and say, "Nah, it's just a penny." And then someone else picks it up later and becomes a millionaire off the coin you almost threw away. That's the kind of real-life twist that hits collectors straight in the chest. Because this coin isn't a legend. It isn't a myth. It's out there somewhere. 1979, on the front. And you're looking specifically for the D mint mark tucked under the year. But that's only the beginning. The real key is in the errors. The first sign is doubling. Not normal doubling, not machine doubling, but sharp, clean, undeniable doubling on the date or on the letters of liberty. When the light hits it, you should see a second shadow, like the coin is whispering its own name twice. This is the kind of doubling that only happens when a die shifts at the exact wrong moment or the exact right moment, depending on how lucky you are. Second, check the mint mark. Every 1979 D penny has a mint mark punched by hand, which means mistakes happened. But you're looking for something extreme, a mint mark that's rotated, tilted, or doubled in a way that doesn't match anything else. Some collectors even search for repunched marks so dramatic they look like the letter is sliding away from itself. And third, look at the strike. A rare few of these coins show off-center pressure, creating slight distortion around the edges. Not enough to be obvious, but enough to give it that eerie, unusual look that sends collectors into a frenzy. If you combine these three features, true doubling, a dramatic mint mark anomaly, and an unusual strike, you might be holding one of the very coins tied to that legendary $1,000,000 valuation. Imagine showing it to a dealer and watching their expression freeze. Imagine sending it in for grading and then receiving the call that your life has just changed because of a single coin the size of your thumb. These coins were never officially documented. There are no official mint records explaining them. No announcements. No explanations. Nothing. It's as if the mint wanted this mistake buried so deep that only the most determined treasure hunters would ever discover it. Every few years, someone posts online claiming they found one. The pictures are blurry. The details are hard to make out. The debates get heated. Collectors argue late into the night. Some say these are just normal errors. Others swear they're the real thing. And the mystery only grows stronger. Now imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a pile of pennies. It's quiet. Just you and the sound of coins sliding against each other. Suddenly, you notice something off. The date doesn't look right. The mint mark is sitting just a little too low. The doubling catches the light. Your heart starts pounding. For a moment, time freezes. Because this isn't just a penny anymore. This is hope. This is possibility. This is the moment you realize you might be staring at a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth over $1,000,000. You don't need to be an expert to spot it. You don't need special tools. You just need patience, a little curiosity, and the willingness to look twice at something the rest of the world ignores. The greatest treasure hunters aren't the ones with fancy equipment. They're the ones who pay attention. Now let's reset for a moment, because this is important. Every single day, millions of pennies get exchanged, rolled into wrappers, shoved into drawers, tossed into jars. Most people treat them like trash, but collectors know better. Because once in a while, a penny breaks the rules of probability and becomes a ticket to a completely different life. The 1979 D $1,000,000 penny is exactly that kind of coin. People have reported finding them in pocket change, in jars of old coins inherited from parents, in boxes of pennies purchased from the bank. Sometimes the biggest discoveries come from the most ordinary places, and that's what makes this story so powerful. It's not about luck. It's about looking at the everyday world and realizing it's full of secrets. Now imagine someone watching this video years from now. They listened. They checked their coins. They took a second look at something everyone else ignored, and it paid off. That could be you. And the moment you believe that, the chase becomes real. Take one more breath and imagine this. You're sitting across from an auctioneer. The crowd is silent. Your coin is sitting under the glass, glowing under the lights. The bidding starts. $50,000, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000. The room is buzzing. People on the phones are bidding from across the world. And then the number appears, $1,400,000. And it hits you that this tiny copper coin, this forgotten little piece of change, just changed your life forever.